Hello and welcome back to the Start a Glamping Business podcast. Today we have Chris Jeub, who is the owner and operator at Monument Glamping in Colorado, and he's also an educator in the space as well, going by the name The Glamping Guy. Chris, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Nick. I'm pleased to be here.
So tell us more about Monument Glamping.
Yeah, Monument Glamping started in 2019. My wife and I had this idea to remodel our bedroom. I was formerly I was a public school teacher. We remodeled our bedroom, and I built a platform in my backyard and put my hunting tent on there. It's a nice wall tent from Davis Tent, and we moved our master bedroom outdoors. And we loved it. The kids were inside, we were outside, we just had a blast. And after the remodel was done, we decided to throw it up on Airbnb to see what would happen, and we booked out the rest of the summer. Couldn't believe it. My hunting gear made $2,400 that summer in 2 months. And it would have been just sitting in storage, waiting for the hunting season, but I actually made money on it. So we thought that was a neat thing. The next summer we did 2 tents, and we just blew it. We 10x the summer. We just couldn't believe it. Now that was a COVID year, so we thought it was a fad. But my wife and I really decided we really loved outdoor hospitality, having people on our property, getting to know them sometimes, and just giving them a good time, an outdoor experience, especially during COVID when people wanted to get out of their apartments, and we still have people trying to bust out of Dodge and coming to our sites. Then Monument Glamping really started to formulate into a business. The next year we did 6 units. Now we have 12 and 2 properties, and we got into a lot of trouble with the county and with the building departments and stuff that we had to learn the hard way on really how to run a glamping operation on private property. But I'm still learning. Now we're 5 years into it now. We're just wrapping up our 5th season, and had a phenomenal season. Just had a phenomenal summer, and really, even with the Airbnb dirge that's been going on, we've had no troubles filling up, and just learning every day, Nick, just on how to treat people well, how to give them a good time. And provide these outdoor accommodations on our properties. And we're looking for more properties. We feel like we're in a nice spot. Monument Glamping is in Monument, Colorado. It's just north of Colorado Springs. The Air Force Academy is building a $68 million welcome center right off the interstate, one exit down, and across the highway from that is a new amphitheater. They're calling it a Red Rocks Ranch 2, Red Rocks Amphitheater 2. And because it's going to be huge, and when the REO Speedwagon comes to town, we're going to be hosting a lot of good people for those concerts. So
yeah, it's interesting that there are quite a few people I've spoken to who started, tentatively during COVID perhaps, and realized that they were onto something. But then there's always that fear of, as you say, was it a fad, was it not? And I think, the evidence has shown, from a lot of people that it clearly wasn't just a fad. Maybe it kick-started the growth of the industry, but certainly, it's gone from strength to strength since then, and it's showing no signs of stopping. So it's a really exciting time to be part of the industry. So you said you've got 12 structures across 2 properties. Could you give us a bit of a breakdown in terms of how much it costs to set up those sites, and sort of, what kind of units you have on each property?
Yeah, the first one I put up was next to nothing because I just pretty much built a deck and then put the tent on it because I already had all that stuff. So it was trying to create a camping experience for the guests. Now we've really upped our game and done well. We've got we've got 4 safari tents. 2 of which are on grid with their own private bathroom, with flushing toilets and hot water and stuff. The other 2 are off grid. We have 2 bell tents that are right along our creek that run through our backyard, and those are off grid also. We have a tiny home, which is actually an RV technically, but it looks like a tiny home, and we call it Big Red. And then we have a container home that's the first of 11 that my son have built. He's a welder, and he's very much a part of our operation. He's grown up. He's not a little kid anymore, but he's a grown up. And the original one he built was on my property, and this was 4 years ago. And we have 4 more rather. One's a duplex, so we call it just one unit, and it's on our second property, which we're going through permitting right now. How much they all cost? Let's see. I'll start at the low end. It was probably the bell tents. They're the most inexpensive operation to set up. A bell tent's about $1,000, and the platform and all the stuff that we put around it, maybe a couple thousand more. So we can get by with a $3,000 setup. Safari tents are a bit more expensive. We have landscaping timbers around it. That's kind of a story in and of itself why I do landscaping timbers and build like a garden bed to put them on instead of a deck anymore. It has to do with permitting. But we got that, and we build a nice deck on the front, and we've got some outfitters tents. So I would say those are about $5,000 to $7,000 setups. The tiny home, the one the container homes are $40,000 container homes, and that's really just a shell. And they can run up to 60 or 80,000 when they're out of production. And then the tiny home, I got a steal on. This is the RV. This was a foreclosure that was going on across town. A realtor kind of let me know about it. I made a bid on it. There wasn't even a bid. I just made an offer. This is just a low ball offer. A poor guy was trying to build something and it just didn't work out. So, and I got it for only $20,000, and that's actually one of my top performing thing. But it's probably worth about 80 to 100,000 as far because it's an RV. So
Yeah.
that's my operation right now, and I've financed it with my HELOC. I did a HELOC on my property because we've lived here for 23 years. So when we really started getting serious, we had most of our house paid off anyway. So we had a lot of equity in the house. So we took a HELOC out, a $200,000 HELOC, and that pretty much has financed the stabilization of this first property where we have 8 units. And then it's kickstarting the purchase. We're in a contract right now, an option to buy with our second property, and that's going under development right now, and we're under review actually with the county and moving forward with that. So hopefully we want to have 24 units over there. It's complicated, but we
Mm.
could get will get 12 units, but we're trying to push for 24 and have them all container homes, and because those have been the hottest commodity or hottest unit that we've put on our properties, and we do quite well with them.
Yeah, you've implemented a strategy that we always advocate, and that's having a mixture of unit types, to just mix it up, have different nightly rates, bring people back so they want to stay in the different units, compared to the first day. And one question we get quite a lot is, how does on-grid compare to off-grid? How do ensuite bathrooms compare to non-ensuite bathrooms in terms of the nightly rate you can charge and the occupancy rates you can attract? So how have you found it? So let's say, you've got some bell tents, some on-grid safari tents and off-grid safari tents. How has the daily rate and occupancy rate kind of fluctuated between those three?
I would say that if you have running water and hot water, it's always a plus. I don't know about the daily rate. The daily rate does you can charge more because the demand is higher. But for a glamping experience, especially the staycation or in my area, we're getting Denver and Colorado Springs people. So that's sort of different than like you might find at a national park or something like that, where there's a lot of vacationers. In the summer we get a lot of vacationers, but in the fall, spring, and winter we get staycationers. And you know the difference between those. Maybe your viewers don't. The staycationers are the ones that I mentioned earlier, like busting out of Dodge, getting out of their apartment. They just want to have a night, by a creek and go camping without the camping gear, and that's a unique subset, I think, versus a vacationer who's on their way to Garden of the Gods or the Rocky Mountains and Rocky Mountain National Park or something like that. And they're on their way. We're a destination point for them. So yeah, yeah. So I have four safari tents. These are a good comparison. I have four safari tents. Two of them are off grid, and meaning that they don't have hot water. They don't have a shower and a bathroom. They have it gets complicated what they do have. They do have some electricity and things like that. So they're not totally off grid, but they don't have a nice shower house, which is two of my safari tents. I built a new shower house, so they don't share the shower house. They have two private. It's like a mirrored. It's a shed really with a bathroom on each side, and it's a private bathroom on each side. And those tents fill up the fastest, even though that they might be priced similarly. They those vacancies don't stay empty for very long.
Hi everyone, Nick from Glampitect North America here, and I've just got a very quick message to announce some extremely exciting news. Since launching in July 2022, Glampitect North America has made a name for itself in the North American glamping industry. We've consulted on over 40 glamping projects, accumulated over 47,000 podcast downloads and plays, and we're now ready to take the next step. And with that, we're absolutely delighted to announce that we're beginning the process of developing our own glamping projects. We want you to be involved. There are more details to come, but for now, we're taking expressions of interest from prospective investors. We're so excited to get this going. It's been a long time coming and we can't wait to get you involved. So all you have to do is fill out the form in the description of this episode and we'll be in touch with more information very soon. We can't wait to hear from you and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Yeah, and what is it about the container homes that you think have made them such a big hit?
Oh, I think they're just cool. They're cozy. People staying in a shipping container it's the unique stays are really cool, and people just love that. So that's what I think about the container homes. And I don't know, the container homes might not last forever as far as being cool, but for right now they are, and we've got a good corner on that market, I believe.
Yeah, and you've alluded a couple of times to permitting issues, particularly around the first site, and you're going through that process again for the second property. How was that process for you? How did you find it?
Oh, it was trial by storm. It was awesome. It was really, I call, let's see, it was the third year of my, I have a neighbor, okay, a neighbor who just hates what I'm doing. And a lot of what I do in Glamping Guys actually talk about, not so much the neighbor, but the reactions that this neighbor has. The neighbor really does want me to shut me down. Now, I've leveraged that because the neighbor isn't liked by anybody in the neighborhood. So it's kind of nice to have this kind of neighbor. But so she hasn't really gotten anybody on her side. But she does call every agency under the sun when she thinks that I'm doing something wrong. So I got the building department and the health department for both state and local or county. I got the zoning department, and just everyone is calling me, sending me letters, and yellow jackets started showing up in my front yard. I call them yellow jackets because they show up in your front yard wearing a yellow jacket and a badge, and they say, "We're from the government. We're here to help." But that's worked to my advantage, honestly, Nick. I started to just comply and started to learn, be an open book and just kind of like, okay, this is what I'm doing. What do I need to do to conform or to come in line with your code, to come in line with whatever the community goes by? And it was in 2022, July of 2022, after about a 6 to 7 month really fight with this one neighbor and the county, that I got my special use permit. And the special use permit, for those people who just don't know the details of all these permits, because it is overwhelming, and it actually dissuades people from doing glamping. I try to encourage people, don't get dissuaded by it, because it happens to all of us. And we tend to we get our first letter of intent, or letter of not letter of intent, but no, like notice of violation. I got it kind of laying around my office here. Yeah, I got this one right here. It's someone's on YouTube. They can see it. Notice of violation dated April 21st. I'm still working through this. I had to call up the officer. We know each other by first name now, and he said, it's the neighbor's calling again, and what that's done is it forces a glamping operation to just legitimize and to become a business. So it's kind of like, come to think of it, it's kind of like taxes. We all hate taxes, right? But the tax code does force you to get your books right. You got to clean up your act accounting wise, and the same thing is with permitting. So it started with the building department. I had structures that weren't permanent. It's like I mentioned, that deck. The deck was over 200 square feet. Well, you have to be under 200 square feet to sidestep a permit. And that's what I mentioned. Then you can get creative as an entrepreneur, because I mentioned before of the landscaping timbers. Well, that was to avoid a permit. Okay. If I built a deck and actually had footings and things like that with a wood floor and traditionally what you would think, I would be over 200 square feet and I'd have to go through the permitting process. The permit's not too bad. It's like a $500 permit, but it's going through the plans and things like that, getting a drafter and talking to someone downtown. It would be a pain. Well, I actually asked my enforcement officer, well, what if I put it on this like a landscape? What if I put it on the ground? What would that do? And he says, oh, then you would need a permit. Well, bingo. Okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And it turned out to be very, very nice. So I've got these 6x6 timbers around. I've got a whole video on us setting up a safari tent on the landscape timbers. We got the 6x6 timbers around there. We filled it with some dirt and some gravel, and we put the tarp that comes with the Davis tent, and it looks great. It's beautiful. It's on the ground, and the bed and the furniture goes in there. It just works fantastic. We have a smaller deck out front, and guess what? The smaller deck is under 200 square feet. It's actually like 80 square feet. It's tiny, but just enough for a grill and a hot tub and a few lawn chairs and good. We're done. We've got our glamping operation. That's me getting to know the code rather than rising up and against the code. It's me getting the enforcement officer, the yellow jacket, on my side to try to help me understand what I can do. Because really, the people downtown, um, they they look at you like you have three heads when you start telling them that you want to put a glamping site up in your yard and you want to invite people on board. They go, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Well, I always say, well, what can I do? And that just switching that around is it gets the county officials or the municipality officials or whoever, whatever jurisdiction the landowner is in, to get them to work for you and with you, and then they get to like you, and then they want you to succeed. So they just need you to succeed within their county or municipality code, and that kind of thinking is what a successful glamping operator should do.
And were they generally fair with you, as opposed to the nightmare neighbour that was kicking up a fuss about absolutely everything? With the county just kind of keen to make sure that you were meeting all the right legislation, but in general they were okay with it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you gotta understand, especially with like the building department, they're helping people build skyscrapers, and big, huge developments. These houses that are going up. I'm in unincorporated El Paso County in Monument, Colorado. I mean, it just makes it sound like leave me alone county. Okay, it's just like there's no jurisdictions I'm in the country, so I thought I really had more leeway than I did, and but there's houses going up right alongside my property, these townhomes, and so they're building up, and they better not mind me duck hunting this fall because they bought property right alongside unincorporated El Paso County, so it's that's the kind of they're dealing with that kind of stuff. So my little hoedown little glamping operation in my backyard is really low on their priority list, and they see me as kind of a novice. It's kind of like I'm the new kid in the classroom, and there's these big bullies that are these big developers they're all lawyered up and everything.
Yeah.
They're dealing with those kinds of people, and here what I want to do. I just want to have a handful of people on my property because I think it's fun and really really nice, and we decided to make this our livelihood, and that's they've been really cool with that.
And I don't want to use the term playing dumb because it's probably a little bit almost patronising. But would you say that sort of, I'm just going to say it, playing dumb almost helped you rather than coming in acting like you were the expert who knew everything and trying to find any loopholes? Did you find that sort of just asking a lot of questions and not being overt about how much you knew helped?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if I'd call it playing dumb, but I would call it I'd call it being curious.
Hmm.
Really, like what do I need to do? Um, I give you an example. I actually recorded it on glampingguy.com. This is a good one because my enforcement officer for the building department this time. Okay, so I go back and forth between the county and the building department. They work in the same building, but they hardly talk to each other. So it's like a different yellow jacket coming. And I was used to this one enforcement officer. Well, he said, "Hey, I want to come by with my boss because we really don't know what you're doing." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I hang up and say, "Ooh, I got the guys coming." And so we cleaned up the place and everything. And I kind of knew I was out of conformity for a few things. We were working toward compliance. So we did things like, well, like the landscaping that I told you about. So we took down a couple of our decks and just got rid of them and then restructured everything. We had like our shower house mostly finished, and we had so we had some things that were done, and they could see we were moving toward compliance. But when my compliance officer and his boss came out, and we walked the property, we're walking down and I said, I got to be honest with you, I'm not 100% compliant, but you'll see some progress, and that just saying that, preempting the visit with that was a huge relief. They said these things got to be done and this got to be done, and we're actually I'm still not compliant. I'm still working toward it, but they know that, and they recognize these things take time. They didn't give me a cease and desist letter, which I've heard happens sometimes. That's kind of like you can't do anything more. I have not heard of, maybe that's not true. Maybe I have heard of it, but I talk to glamping operators all over the place, and they actually hire me to counsel with them and stuff like that sometimes. And usually when somebody says they've gotten shut down, they usually mean they've given up. The work just became too much, or they just didn't understand it, and they got or maybe they got threatened. Because really, I showed you this. If people are watching on YouTube, I showed it. This is the notice of violation, and it sounds mean. And it sounds like grumpy, like they're going to come out there with the SWAT team and start yanking up your stakes. And all you got to do is call a guy at the bottom of it says, "Call me within 14 days, or he's going to take other precautions." This was April 21st. It's like, and I didn't know it's kind of a long story, but I didn't know that I couldn't swap a tent out for an RV, and that didn't go along with my special use to the letter of my special use. So that's why I got the letter of violation. There was a misunderstanding with my planner and things like that. It kind of goes into the weeds of having to deal with these people. But it took a lawyer. I have a very good lawyer, so I had to call him up and say, "Hey, look, I got this letter. I don't know where it came from," and then we kind of worked through it. We called a meeting with our planner, two planners actually, and that planner's boss. Got it all figured out. We did an addendum to our special use. Now we're actually, you'll find this interesting, Nick. My first special use said I was going to have 8 tents on the property, okay? And on my site development plan, I had tents. And in my letter of intent, I didn't mention tents. I was calling them units. And I really thought that the county would let me swap out kinds of units, okay? And they were more concerned with like the impacts of those units, like how many people are staying, how much sewage is coming out of it, how much water is being used. I really thought the impact, the footprint of the unit was more important, and all of it was important. Well, apparently my neighbor saw me roll in the RV and called them up and said he's supposed to have just tents. So even though, and this is an RV that looks like a tiny home, it looks very, very nice. Okay, even though it was an upgrade of site pollution, a tent is more disturbing to the landscape of our neighborhood. A tiny home doesn't look anything different. It looks like a little house. So it looks like a shed almost. You have to look twice to think that there's a problem. But even so, like I said, she wants to shut me down. Well, the county doesn't want to shut me down. So they said, well, here's the plan. You go ahead and resubmit, not resubmit, but submit for an addendum. We'll go through these two, and you could actually broaden the term of what a glamping unit is. Well, that's an open door.
Yeah.
So I'm leveraging that. So now I can put a school bus, a hut, a tree house, whatever I want, as long as the footprint's the same. It's defined now with the county that I'm going to put a glamping unit, and that glamping unit can change as my business changes. And that's why I'm not too afraid of the whole container home. If container homes all of a sudden become like gross and nobody wants to stay in them, all right, I'll swap it out for a safari tent or a dome or whatever I want. As long as it's still a two person, two kids is what they kind of look at it, and it doesn't increase the footprint of it. I'm good. So my neighbor actually, thank you neighbor, because now I have a more broadened definition of what the business that I'm doing.
I hope you sent her a thank you note.
Oh, no, I didn't. Now that you mention it, I might. That might
um,
encourage her to call him up even more.
but yeah, some really good stuff there for anyone either going into or preparing to go into the permitting process and moving from the setup of the glamp ground to the operation of the glamp ground. One very interesting fact about you is that you have 16 kids.
And 16
Obviously,
children.
obviously,
Here, I got an older
oh,
picture.
here we go.
For YouTube fans, there's an older picture of them, and I think one of my kids have one grandchild. I'm now up to just announced 19 grandchildren. So this is a
Wow.
few years old. So
So
boy,
yeah, obviously, clearly, some of them are adults. As you said, your son is helping you
yes,
build the container homes.
I'm down to
But
5 kids at home. So
okay,
only it's
but
easy
that,
peasy
I
now.
mean, that's that's still quite a lot. And I'm sure that there are plenty of parents or people who expect to be parents who also are either running or expecting to operate a glamping site at some point. And I'm sure they would appreciate advice on how to maintain a glamping operation alongside raising 5, 6, 7, 8, however many kids you've had at various points in the house. So, have you got any advice for people like that?
Glamping is a great any kind of outdoor hospitality. You really you think of like campgrounds and stuff. They're typically family operated. So my sister owned a campground up in northern Minnesota for many years, and she and her husband and 2 kids pretty much took care of the whole thing. When the kids were older, they sold it, and now they don't do it anymore. But that's very typical in the RV camping world, is that these are family owned and operated um, businesses, and that's what we have. So
Mm.
our kids help with the cleaning, with the maintenance, and with things like that. And they get paid handsomely. They're part of the machine, and they like it. And we really do love this moment in our lives as we're building this business. I don't know what we'll feel in what we have. Our youngest is 12, so in 5 6 years he'll be moving on, and we'll be down to just Wendy and me. I don't know. Maybe by then it'll be worth $20 million, and I'll just sell
Or you can ship the
it.
grandchildren in to replace them.
They're right. That's right. The grandchildren. Those might go on. Might go on.
Yeah, and there's a glamping company in the UK called Tractors and Cream. That is just like a kind of a small family-owned glamping site, and they don't have 16 kids, but they have a few kids, and I've spoken to Vicky who owns that, and they have their own YouTube channel and everything like that, and you should check it out. But they've said it's a real privilege to be able to raise their kids essentially in the outdoors, and it's kind of like a playground for them almost. Has that been has that been a similar case for you?
Oh yes. I mean, I mentioned duck hunting before. We have a creek in our backyard, and we have waterfowl flying over, so that's a big deal. We fly fish in our creek too, and we encourage our glampers to do it also. But that's all the more reason to jump on our side by side and just ride down to the creek and get some and have some fun. We also grow things. Well, no, actually, they grow in the wild. So we have choke cherries that we make chokecherry wine out of. So it's something out of the fruit of the land. I just This is my first year doing it. I noticed I have wild hops growing everywhere on my property, and so I picked a whole bunch of the hops and I'm making beer out of it. I mean, a homemade beer with hops.
KOA have just done a branded beer
Uh huh.
collection, so
Uh
maybe you
huh.
can follow in their footsteps.
And Colorado has very lax laws about home brew. So I got a what's called they have a what's called a B&B license, a bed and breakfast license. So I can actually gift my tenants with alcohol, and so we make our own wine, make our own, and for non-alcoholics, so we make our own kombucha. In fact, another encouragement for people to not just listen to this, but to go to YouTube. I did something. You saw me take a drink of ice water.
No problem.
I just look at that. This is bottled kombucha.
Nice.
You ever hear kombucha?
Yeah, I like it. Well, I can't say I like yours. I haven't tried it, but I do like kombucha. Yeah.
Oh, we've done this more than we've done. So look at that. Looks like beer, doesn't it?
You should bring some to the glamping show. I'll sample some.
I will. Actually, a bunch of glamping guys want this. So this is kombucha. It's a probiotic tea, and you ferment it. It's got like 0.5% of alcohol. It doesn't have a lot. In fact, it's really not a lot, but it's very delicious, very smooth. So, and there's like a SCOBY in the big jar and stuff. But I bottle it and we give it to our glampers, so they get they're welcome there with a bottle of kombucha or wine.
And for those listening, Chris has just poured his own kombucha into his glass, and he's just taken what looks like a very refreshing sip.
It is very refreshing.
So Chris, you've obviously, you've got a successful operation up and running now. You're planning a second property with what maybe 6, what maybe 12 units. Have you got any expansion plans beyond that?
Might be 24 units.
Maybe 24.
Something we're exploring. Yeah. We just walked the property literally yesterday and kind of expanded our minds on that. Yes, there's a third property that is in the works. It's owned by a developer who wants to develop houses. And that's the one thing that I encourage people to do is that once they become, well, Nick, you'll find this very interesting. There is a temptation to just fly under the radar, have your tent in the trees, throw it on Airbnb, make some money, and move in that direction. But if you embrace the business side of this, I encourage people to really become leaders in your community. Join your chamber of commerce. I started writing for the OCN. It's called the I don't know what it stands for. It's the local newspaper, the Our Community News newspaper. That's what it is. And so I write on town hall and stuff like that. Well, I've gotten to know the life of a developer. There's one of the hats that a glamping operator uses is a developer hat, and you're doing a great job, by the way, with Glampitect, because it's really showing people, hey, you got to be a little developer here and really develop the land properly. Much like if I bought a piece of land, I was building houses on it and multifamily units or something. So that's my third property, and I'm kind of working it because I don't think he's going to get what he wants, and then he'll sell it to me. He already told me he was going to sell it to me if that all works out. But that stuff takes time, and it takes submitting to the county and maybe going in front of the county commissioners or town hall and going in front of the board of trustees or whatnot, and getting to know these people too. So you kind of get to know them politically. As a citizen, you're a citizen. Just you as a landowner, wherever you live, are just as important as the crabby neighbor who thinks you shouldn't put a tent in your backyard. So you have rights as a landowner, and getting to know what your rights are and what your opportunities are with variances and permitting and special uses, allowed uses, all that stuff. You got to put your brain around and really get to know it. You got to educate yourself and get to know it so that you can do what I'm doing. And golly, Nick, I'm making a living off it. I'm making 6 figures off of this. I was a teacher. I was a public school teacher, and I quit, and I'm doing this full time. It's almost funny how much money is in this space. I talk to people in the short-term rental space, and I'm kind of in some groups and things like that. I mean, glamping is like, we're making more money than, they're getting excited about making $500 a month on their Airbnb.
I'm waiting for the day that they realize how much money there is in this space, because
don't tell them.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they want to give us a load of money to do it for them, then feel free. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy and there's so many sophisticated investors in the Airbnb short-term rental space. and yet the returns you can get from glamping, which probably, it is harder to set up probably and operate, but once you've got it up and running, you can be quite hands off if you want to be, and the returns just completely dwarf short-term rental returns. So
I'm going through this kind of this moral conflict, because there's still, some of this is proprietary. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to show my cards too much. But I am the glamping guy, and I do like to tell people how to do it. But I'll just give you an example of how lucrative this is. I just got slammed with with what's called a road impact fee. You've heard of those, right?
I haven't.
They're a lot of money. I got slammed with it, and I got slammed at the beginning, meaning I didn't know it was going to come due before my site development. I thought it was going to come due once I started pulling permits, and that's how it was originally communicated with me. So that by the time I wanted to move forward with my site development plan, the county told me I had to pay my road impact fees first. It was $22,000.
No.
Nick, I wrote a check and gave it to him. It did not bounce. Okay, so that's the kind of money that's coming in. That's the kind of cash flow that comes in when you're a glamping operator. Now, it's not easy. It's very a lot of hard work, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm sitting on the beach and the money's just rolling in. So it takes some smart decisions and some hard work and good business ethics. But it's the first. I sold a business to actually do this too, and I had a publishing business. These are some of the books that are stacked up behind me. And in my teaching career, it was a curriculum company, but I sold that, and now I'm into glamping 100%. But I wasn't making this kind of money as a publisher, especially as a teacher. And so this is really nice. I'm very happy with our life decision, not only because we love it, but also because it's quite the living that we've set up for our family.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening. This is just a quick note to say that this podcast is brought to you by Glampitect in North America. And what we do is we help you through the process of starting a glamping business no matter what stage you're at. So if you need to find a property, we'll tell you where the most suitable area is to start your glamping business. If you have a property, we'll look at your local zoning code and tell you how likely you are to get your project off the ground according to the zoning rules and regulations in your local area. We'll also give you a really good roadmap of permits that you'll need and regulations that you'll need to be aware of to get your glamping business off the ground. If you need financing, we'll introduce you to our range of financing partners and do you a feasibility study that will give you some really solid financial projections and market analysis that will allow you to acquire the funding that you need. If you need glamping units, we'll talk you through your options and introduce you to one of our trusted manufacturing partners to ensure that you're looked after throughout the whole process. If you need a site design or if you need permits to move forward with your project, we've got architects who will do all your drawings, make all your arguments, and essentially allow your dream to become a reality. The list goes on and I don't want to bore you, so I'll let you get back to the episode in a second. All I'd say is that Glampitect North America are the people to speak to about starting a glamping business in the US or Canada. So if you're even thinking of starting a glamping business, just get in touch with us at contact@glampitect.com or 646-586-2330. All the details are in the description, and no matter what stage of the process you're at, we will be able to help, whether it's doing something ourselves or pointing you in the right direction of our partners. Just let us know that you came from the podcast and we'll see about doing you a little discount along the way. So thanks for listening, and I'll let you get back to the episode. Yeah, and you've clearly learned a hell of a lot going through this process, and you've given a hell of a lot of wisdom to the people listening to this show. And you're now sharing that wisdom and those learnings more widely, as you referred to, as you're known as the glamping guy on YouTube and various social channels. So tell us a little bit about that platform and what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, there's two platforms that I was resisting that second one for a long time. The first platform is Monument Glamping. You can go check out our tents and our containers and everything that we've got going on at monumentglamping.com. And that's me and my wife and my kids and and virtual assistants and things like that, just making the business work. But there's a teacher in me too, and this is the soft-hearted glamping guy, because I can't sit. It's almost like I'm sitting on a secret, and it's a little treasure here, and I have to share what I'm learning. It's just part of who I am. And I think if there's any teachers out there, they get that teaching spirit. You want to teach what you've been gifted with. And so I started Glamping Guy, and it's really just me journaling along my path. So like when I got this notice of violation, I did I think it's like a four part series, and it was live. It was I don't
Everything
know if you
is
saw it,
content
but
in our world.
yeah, yeah, right. It just became kind of. It's like I at first I was like, oh shoot, I'm getting busted for something. I don't know what it is, and so there's a lot of misunderstanding that I had thought about just, kind of doing videos after it was all done and I was out of trouble because I didn't suspect that I was really going to get shut down or anything. But it was like I said before, it's intimidating to get those letters, and so I decided to just start recording, and
Mm.
just put the camera on and say, "Hey, I got this letter of violation today. Let's call up the enforcement officer and see what he says and stuff." And it became a learning process, and it became a learning process for me of what I was in violation for. At first, I thought they made a mistake, but it turned out that I had made a mistake. But well, you eat your humble pie. You got dinged. Well, get undinged. That's my philosophy, and that's what I did. But it became a learning process for everybody. So I that right now the channel is really just me journaling through what I'm going through right now. Is kind of a 5 year into my fifth year of running a glamping operation. I would like to turn it into a course. I've got some ideas for a course and a book, and really just teaching how to do what I'm doing to build safe, legal, and profitable glamping operations on private property. There's a lot of people doing things on public property, I think of like Under Canvas. I mean, they don't own any of their property. It's all federal property. But the real, I call it the Ray Kroc model. You know who Ray Kroc is?
Yeah.
Yeah, the McDonald's guy, the founder, right? Well, he was in the real estate business, not so much the hamburger business.
You
And
sound
when
a lot.
you
You sound a lot nicer than Ray Kroc, though.
Oh,
I've
thank you,
heard. I've
thank you
heard
very
terrible
much. Yeah,
things about him.
he wasn't a very nice guy,
Yeah.
but his franchise model was genius, and he was into real estate, and that's the idea that you have this wonderful business called glamping, but then you're also putting it and laying it on top of property that you own. That's like just that alone is going to double your value in as far as a business, the business value. So it doubles your wealth, so maybe even more than that. 10x is your wealth because you're investing in that real estate underneath that glamping property.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is the easiest question to answer in the world, but are you happy with your decision to start a glamping business?
Absolutely, ear to ear grin.
Amazing. Well, Chris, thank you. There's been so much value in this episode. Really happy with it. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, whether it's to book a stay at Monument Glamping or to speak to you in your capacity as the glamping guy, how do they go about doing that?
Those two websites, those two, monumentglamping.com to see what I'm doing. I'm the real deal. I mean, I really am walking the walk and talk, and not just talking the talk. And then monument or glampingguy.com. My contact information is there, and people can sign up for consultations. And I do love just, I'm an open book. I love sharing what I know, and hopefully there's some of your audience who will jump on. Oh, and you do want to subscribe to that because I do have plans for a class and a course that if people are serious about opening up their own glamping operation, I want them to be a part of that class.
Amazing. We'll put the links in the description of this episode. But thank you again, Chris. It was great. It was a great episode. Really happy with it.
Sounds good, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.